or as RuPaul says it, what had happened to her, that Baby Jane girl?
Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
See dead people.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie.
And Nikisha.
Where we share our love for spooky things and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
A little bit of siren, a little bit of razzle dazzle, a little bit of sugar and spice, and everything nice. Oh, as Brian is trying to... he's got the update. Check on the YouTube.
I updated my computer just so I can do that for you all.
Absolutely. Well, you got to look on the YouTubes to see Mr. Producer Brian give us the good old thumbs up fireworks here.
The good old thumbs up fireworks.
Thumbs up fireworks, which is semi-appropriate because today we're talking about the 1962 psychological... I said semi-appropriate. The 1962 psychological horror film, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, or as RuPaul says it, what had happened to her, that Baby Jane girl? Which is one of my favorite episodes of RuPaul's Drag Race. So
that's like season 2, right? That's like
it's early on.
Uh-huh.
But still good television, man. Gotta love it.
Yeah, where I think like. Is that angina or somebody's head is underneath the
yes, the plate?
Yeah.
Oh my
Brian
God.
knows.
Binge.
Oh, I know.
Great binge.
A great binge.
Yeah, totally.
Yes. Well, we're talking about the OG Baby Jane, and this film was directed by Robert Aldridge, and it stars one Betty Davis and Joan Crawford, and it is based on a 1960 novel of the same name by Henry Farrell. So, spoiler alerts for everything Baby Jane. If you have not watched it, take a second. It's 2 hours, but it's a good watch, and then come back and listen to us. Jamie, please hit us with those trigger warnings.
Pop, pop.
Whoa, calm down. Yeah, there's a lot of things in this. Let's see, where do I start? There is murder. Not really insides on the outside. This is the 60s, so just reference to murder, but murder nonetheless. There is reference to child acting and vaudeville, if that's triggering. Alcoholism, mental illness, the psychiatric hospital, isolation,
car crashes. Did you say that already?
Car crashes. I didn't say car crashes.
Writing letters to daddy.
There's a whole musical number about it.
There sure is.
Yes.
Now I can't remember how it goes. It was like really stuck in my head while we were watching.
Yeah, big time.
I've written a letter to something, daddy, something.
Yeah, so Nikisha will be performing the entire number for us later.
I'm ready. Put some makeup on me.
Oh boy. Did I miss anything? I mean, one of the characters is wheelchair bound, suffers an accident.
Dead animals, did we say that?
Oh yeah.
No, lots of like a couple of dead animals that I'm concerned are probably really dead.
Eek.
But eek indeed. Also like physical abuse.
Yeah.
Aside from like all the psychological and emotional abuse that's happening throughout this film. Also like regression. to like an infant-like state.
Sure.
If that's disturbing to you, then
Yeah.
this is also a warning. And dancing with ice cream. If you're worried that ice cream is going to spill, as I was, that might be
on a hot summer day,
anxiety-inducing. On
on the beach,
when it's already probably melty.
yes,
Whew. Nervous.
crazy times. I mean, yes, a lot. There's a lot going on in this 1960s black and white movie. So
Oh, I remember it now. I've written a letter to Daddy.
there you go.
Oh, like in heaven above,
Yeah,
because your dad's dead, I guess.
like no stamps, just kisses.
Yeah, just
and
kisses.
the postman's
The
like,
postman
yeah,
says, yeah, way to go. You just remixed this song.
what a time to be
Postman says,
alive.
yeah, way to go.
Yeah, Tin Pan Alley has never been better.
Oh my God. Yes. Well, we're going to discuss all of that and more. But producer Brian, you have to give us some words first.
Yes.
Words.
Hi, everybody. Hi, YouTube.
Hey.
We love you, YouTube. But thank you for finding us and watching. And of course, you can find us on YouTube. You can find us wherever you're on social media as well, at Talk Horror Pod. We're doing other movies, not just the ones that you're listening to or watching here. We also have fun lists and rankings and stuff like that. So check us out on all social media at Talk Horror Pod. Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter kind of being the major ones. But yeah, thanks so much.
Phantasmal. Well, you guys have to talk to me about a journey that you had this past weekend. Where did you guys go?
Yes, we went to our first PAX East.
Okay.
And it is a convention. So PAX, I believe, is the Penny Arcade Expo.
Okay.
And I forget. Well, PAX East, this was their 20th anniversary. But it's PAX in general is like a convention surrounding like video games and video game culture.
Mhm.
But it's also kind of expanded to like include tabletop gaming, arcade gaming. So it's like all of this. And it's held every year in Seattle. That's PAX West. Boston is PAX East. They do one in Philly as well, which is the PAX Unplugged, and that's the tabletop focused one. And they do one in Australia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So did you have any good finds there?
I mean, this was our first time going, and I feel like a lot of it was just kind of like taking it all in. We're not strangers to conventions because historically we've gone to New York Comic Con every year. But it was really interesting just like being in a conference that felt even more niche down because like Comic Con, I mean, also definitely started around like comic book culture, but has like expanded into just like, I feel like pop culture overall.
Yes.
So to then shift into something that really is like, this is just gaming, like across all of these different spaces, but like it's really just gaming was really fun. Like it was less stressful trying to like find like what am I interested in, because I'm like, well, I'm interested in games, so like
yeah,
you know, I can't really go wrong. And then it's just about like finding different genres and things that are interesting. But it was like it was in Boston. It was at the Boston Convention Center. And like the entire main floor was just filled with like game demos and like booths where they like set up like their game demos, a combo of like big AAA developers, like Pokemon was there. The company that made Baldur's Gate was there. Mountain Dew was there as a major sponsor. Of course.
Do the do.
Do the do. And
not
then
sponsored.
yeah, we are not sponsored by the do, but you know,
no.
if the do wants to look our way, we would happily do the do.
Do it. We'll make do.
And then like a lot of like indie game developers. So like a lot of smaller companies. I think like a lot of self-published companies. And then there was a whole section in the back dedicated to tabletop gaming. There was a section within that was like unpublished tabletop games where they were like taking feedback on the games to then like incorporate to eventually publish. Like, it was really interesting.
Okay.
I felt very overstimulated by it, even though I've been to conferences before, only
Absolutely.
because I felt like it was a lot more like person to person engagement in terms of like trying demos and like networking with people in a variety of ways. Like, as someone who streams on Twitch, like networking with other streamers, networking with game developers. But I
Mm-hmm.
think also just in general, if you're a person that likes video games and you go to this conference, it's like you can go and like talk to these people who like themselves made and designed and drew these games and like learn about like the game itself and then have an opportunity to play it for the first time. So it was really interesting to like experience this event and like see all of the different like horror specific games too. I know Brian got a lot of footage of some of the different horror panels
Yeah.
or horror games and like horror like developers and seeing what they had coming out. So it was fun. I talked too much. What do you think, Brian?
No, you don't talk too much. I mean, you said it all, so that was good. But yeah, there was a lot of horror games there, and that was cool. Someone that we've
Yeah.
played that, they're just like the mortuary's assistant, like stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. And some newer ones that were coming out. Some of them had booths. Like there was just a lot of cool stuff there. It was really fun. I had a great time as well.
Yeah, Jamie, do you Twitch horror movie video games as well?
Like Texas Chainsaw Massacre type stuff.
Just
Mean?
any horror like video game.
Oh yeah, I do. I identify as a horror-variety streamer, so I do.
Okay.
I haven't done the horror in a wee bit, but I've done like a good chunk of like horror. Not so much like a Resident Evil or like Silent Hill type game, but
Mm-hmm.
because those games really scare me. It's so funny. The difference between the impact of a horror movie versus a horror game is so wildly different for me personally.
Yes.
Horror movies are way less scary to me because I personally don't feel threatened. I am like watching it, like we've talked about. Like, why do we seek this out? We seek it out from the comfort of our like home and couch and whatever.
Absolutely.
A horror game, like as soon as I am in the position of making decisions, I
Mhm.
become infinitely more overwhelmed and anxious about it. And like it just becomes scarier to me. So I haven't played a lot of the like big horror games because I am afraid. Like I will 100% admit that straight up, but I like to watch other people play them
Mhm.
because I'm curious about the stories and like I want to experience it, but like I am afraid.
Yes.
So I've played more like I would say horror, but like with a charming vibe, with like stories, puzzles, things like that.
Mhm.
Less like this zombie's gonna come and like actually eat my face and like be right here.
Yeah, and
But
and
people
jump
do like
scares
to watch
and
me.
such.
Yeah, people love to watch me get jump scared, and it's
Yes.
really easy to happen to me. I'm
But that
trying to
totally
attest
absolutely
to
makes
it.
sense. Yeah. When you have no stake in the game, then there's no anxiety, there's no pressure. But like you said, the
Mhm.
minute that you are the person that has to go through the entire story, it absolutely is a lot scarier. So I
Yeah.
totally understand that.
Yeah.
Also, I will say to your point too, Jamie, about the anxiety of being in a convention and being a little bit overwhelmed. That's the only thing that I think about it as far as wanting to go to a convention, but feeling like I would be absolutely overwhelmed at everything that was given to me. I would have to just find out what is happening and plan out, like, I'm just going to go to these 5 things and then maybe give myself an hour to walk around and just kind of explore. But other than that, just to say, oh my gosh, this is happening and this is happening, this is happening, that I absolutely would just want to crawl under a table and cry a little bit. But
Yeah.
we're working through it.
I think that's like really common. Like there were a lot of people that I had met who attended this conference or convention who were like, I'm super overwhelmed, like I need a break. And like
Yes.
went across the street to like the hotel just to like kind of chill in the lobby because like it's a lot. There's just a lot of people, there's a
Mhm.
lot of things going on. It's just like stimulation overload. So I do also, I saw this really interesting thread, like semi-related, about accessibility at PAX in particular, which I
Mm,
thought was really great and really helpful. So like yes, attending a convention where like tens of thousands of people are going to be attending, like the likelihood of it being more anxiety inducing, I think is high. But I think also like I like when they are doing good work to try to like accommodate people as much as possible and make
yeah,
people feel as safe and secure as they can in these spaces. And like it is
absolutely.
noticed, and I appreciate that, like, the folks putting these conventions together. It's actually the same for both of these. So shout out to Reed Pop for doing the good convention work and prioritizing like the safety of your attendees and accessibility
Absolutely.
for attendees.
They wanted to keep doing this again, and so you need to cater to the people that are making you money. So absolutely, the least you
Also
can do is
true.
make people feel comfortable while they're there.
Yes. Yes.
That's amazing. One day I will join you guys and we will go on a quest to have the best convention time. I
Yes.
have to share two things that I watched, which one I think y'all all saw on my story, but for St. Patty's Day, I decided to watch Leprechaun for the
Yes.
first time. And what a time I had watching Jennifer Aniston, who I did not know was in that movie. And she looked exactly the same as she does now.
Wait,
What a
really? I've
fun
never seen
watch.
it.
It is a time was had, but she's supposed to be a teenager. And I said this in my Instagram story. She's the type of person who will just always look like an adult, no matter how young she is.
Sure.
And this is probably the youngest that she's been in a movie that I have seen.
Mm.
And so in watching it, I could not believe that she was just a 15, 16-year-old girl because she looked like she was 30. But,
That's
you know,
funny.
it all added to the fun
Yeah.
of it. Also, we don't have to talk about this, but I just want to say that I watched Quiet on Set. And
Mm.
if people want to watch it for the millennial kill your nostalgia part of it, but it was definitely, I think, a pretty nicely crafted documentary about
Sure.
everything.
Okay.
So it's on Max, formerly HBO Gabriel, if you want to watch Quiet on Set about Nickelodeon.
HBO Gabriel.
HBO Gabriel.
It's funny every time.
It's great. Every time I can remember to say it, I'm gonna say it.
Yes.
All right, so we're here to talk about Baby Jane. We got to get a plot summary of Baby Jane, and then we'll get into it. So producer Brian is going to give us a nice, cute little plot summary of this
Just a
movie.
cutie patootie little plot summary.
Cute
All
little
right.
patootie for the daddy upstairs in heaven.
What's the plot?
I think I could keep this pretty solid. I think that it's long, but like it's repetitive.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. So, producer Brian, you have 2 minutes on the clock to give us whatever happened to Baby Jane.
We'll find out, won't we?
I sure think we will. All right. Ready, steady, go.
Okay, so there are two sisters. One is Blanche, one is Jane. Baby Jane is a child star in vaudeville and basically is the breadwinner of the family. She's this little obnoxious brat because she kind of is the breadwinner and is given that power. Blanche is clearly jealous of her and hates the way that both Baby Jane and the father treat her. And her mother basically tells her to always look out for her sister and try not to remember what she's done to you or remember and she says I'll never forget, but she says it in like a nasty way. And then we flash forward to about 15 17 years later, where Blanche is now the movie star, and Blanche is trying to find gigs for her sister, Blanche has like control over contracts. Anyway, that's what happens. And then we get to the opening credit sequence, which is awesome, where we see the car strike one of the sisters but from the other sister, and Blanche is now in a wheelchair, and Blanche is Joan Crawford, let me just say, and Betty Davis is Baby Jane. So they live together now. Baby Jane is taking care of Blanche, but Blanche, they don't have any money left, basically, and Jane is still so deeply mad and jealous of her sister because her movies are airing on TV, and she's getting the recognition again. However, they need to sell the house, and Blanche is planning this behind Jane's back, who's taking care of her, but Jane is descending into even more madness because she wants to be the star again. I'm just going to go over the 2 minutes, sorry. And and essentially, like, Blanche just is trying to get out of the house and figure out how she can escape this, and Jane is an alcoholic who's trying to start up her career again. She even puts an ad in the newspaper. She's stealing money from her sister, whatever is left. They end up killing Jane ends up killing the housekeeper Elvira, who comes back and finds Blanche. Jane hides the body, but and then beats up Blanche. This is before then, but beats up Blanche because she tried to call the doctor to get Jane put away, essentially. And then Jane essentially kidnaps Blanche, brings her to the beach where they used to perform, and the cops find them, and Blanche reveals in the twist that it wasn't actually Baby Jane driving the car that night. Blanche actually tried to kill Jane. She was so drunk, and she crawls out of the car when she breaks her back when she drives into the house, and made it look like Jane tried to do it to Blanche when it really was the other way around. So there, we'll talk about the guilt and all of that. And there's some wonderful lines in this movie. For instance, one is like, "So you're saying we could have been friends all this time," or whatever that line is. And then it ends with the cops finding Blanche. We're not totally sure if she's alive or not. And then Baby Jane dancing with ice cream on the beach. Obviously, there's a lot of meta stuff to this as well, but that's whatever happened to Baby Jane.
And that's the plot.
Yes. And a lot happened to her. A lot of trauma, but she still ended up being such a terrible person, which I'm very interested in us talking about. So let's get into our first segment of likes and gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
So I will say this is all of our first time watching this all the way through.
This is my third time.
Ah, okay, fantastic.
I forgot.
So this is one of my mom's favorite movies.
Really?
I watched it. I've seen it. I have not seen this movie since I was 13 years old.
Okay.
So, like, it's been a very long time, and I only vaguely remembered some of the specifics of it. But this is one of my mom's like favorites. She saw it when she was a kid, and it really affected her. You know, there's a nostalgia aspect to it. There's also the movie star aspect. Like, these are movie stars in this movie, like getting their revitalizing their careers. But I'm not going to go. I'll go last because you two haven't seen it. But I just wanted to point out a couple things. One, this is the first movie that started the subgenre of psycho-biddy. So that is a subgenre which I find fascinating. And this is the one that started it. This revitalized both of their careers. More Betty Davis. They hated each other. I'm sure that Nikisha will go more into this because of what she has recently watched. And then also Betty Davis did her own makeup in this movie, which is fascinating. And they loved it. And also the writer of the book was on set, and when he saw Betty Davis like that, he was basically like, that's exactly how I imagined it. Like one of these like old LA actresses who does their face up like on Hollywood Boulevard, like of that time period and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So, I'm excited to hear what the two of you thought about this movie, and I'll go into my likes and gripes when you're all done.
Yeah, I'll start because I suggested that we watch this movie. mostly because I was in the middle of watching Ryan Murphy's Feud series, Betty versus Joan. He has another one out about mob wives, I think. But I just
So
recently,
many.
there's so many things.
Oh,
Ryan
one of
Murphy
the
has
Capote,
handled so many
yeah,
things.
with
Yeah,
Truman Capote.
yes. But I wanted to watch Betty and Joan because I also love old Hollywood movies.
Mhm.
Love Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly, that kind of vibe. And it was so interesting to, even though most of it is fictionalized, it was so interesting to see how this movie was made. And commenting on what some of the things Brian had mentioned, the whole scene where there's a whole scene where Betty Davis is putting on her makeup and walking out on set, and everyone just stopping in their tracks and saying, yes, that is the look that we want for Baby Jane.
Hmm.
Also, just to imagine this being as if Viola Davis and Meryl Streep were 20 in the next 20 years did like this kind of movie, like the impact of that, because they were such megastars. Except it was also interesting to see how much Joan and Betty hated each other. And even when there were moments when Baby Jane was kicking Blanche, and then I don't know if this is fictionalized or not, but I want to believe that this is probably true, is that Betty actually kicked Joan in the head
Oh my
while they were
god.
filming.
So I read that was true. I also
Yeah.
read that Joan Crawford specifically asked for a body double during those sequences because she didn't trust Betty Davis.
Yes.
So there was all of that, but also to add to your analogy, Nikisha, like, but this is also if you add in like Viola Davis and Meryl Streep like hating each other, like,
Yeah.
and the thing is, um Betty Davis got the rights to this and was shopping it around, and Betty Davis, even though they hated each other, was the one that convinced Joan Crawford to come onto the movie because like there's like the whole meta aspect. Like I think that's fascinating. Like the closest thing I can think to in this in like contemporary, and
Yeah.
it's not even that close, is like Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Like
Mm.
Brad and Angelina like cheating on that movie. Like there's so much meta in that movie because of what happened in their personal lives, but it's not the
Absolutely.
same. This is totally different, but that's like the closest thing I can think of like right now in terms of like you almost go to the movie for the meta aspect of it as much as the entertainment value of the film itself.
I agree, which I think is probably also why it was so successful, because everyone wasn't really talking about their performances in the movie. They wanted to know what was happening as they were filming the movie. They
This
wanted
is
to
their
know,
tabloid.
yeah, it is their paparazzi trying to get a sneak peek of, if Joan Crawford is side-eyeing Betty Davis, or whatever the case
Mm.
may be. So it was just interesting to watch that series. And so I'll tie that in to say I think that this movie was more interesting for me after watching Betty versus Joan. And
Sure.
I think that I would have had a different experience watching this. I still would have enjoyed it, but I would have had a different experience if I had just watched this movie by itself.
Sure.
Really quickly, because I don't have a lot of likes and gripes. I thought that it was very interesting, the concept of Blanche becoming the movie star, because I didn't know that that was what the plot was, even with watching the Ryan Murphy TV show. So it was nice to see that it wasn't just all about Baby Jane and her success and bringing in the money. It was actually Blanche who brought in all the money. So I just really loved that concept. I love the wide shots in this movie. When the pianist that was hired was like, sitting by the telephone, but then Betty Davis is running up the stairs and they just do a wide shot of just like that
Mm-hmm.
whole room. I just really loved that. And I thought it was very glamorous, just to kind of show how glamorous the mansion was, but then how decaying Baby Jane was becoming as the time was passing by. So I just really like those two things up against each other. Poor bird. Wow. I was really sad about that bird at the
Yeah,
very
poor
beginning.
bird. Pretty bird. Pretty
Pretty
bird.
bird. Yes. Greenfinch and linnet bird, if you will, but it is dead and it can't sing. And I thought this movie was a bit of a slow burn at times. Brian, you mentioned the word repetitive, and I agree. I think that
Mm.
a lot of things were happening at once, especially connecting the bird and then the rat. You've already had the aspect once of her opening the thing and there being
Mm.
like a
Mm-hmm.
so having that again just didn't reinforce anything. It was just felt like a let's just do this again, but with like
Sure.
a even nastier animal, quote unquote, if you will.
Mm.
um I was really mad about Elvira and girl leaving the hammer on the table. It's like, of course, baby Jane is going to
Mhm.
come and get you.
Mm-hmm.
You got God. It's fine.
You
My
got
favorite acting
God.
moment from Joan Crawford was her trying to get down the stairs,
Mm-hmm.
and the struggle in that. It was really hard to watch, but beautiful to see the acting moment from her.
Mhm.
Um, and watching Betty Davis kind of slip into madness in and out, because at first you just think is she's just an angry child star, and then when she starts having like the hallucinations, or she's singing in the mirror and she's hearing the things and she's looking at the doll, and and that just slowly progressing throughout the movie, I thought that was a really great character journey. The biggest gripe that I had, aside from it just being a little bit of a too much of a slow burn, was that the pianist scenes, I didn't feel like they were super necessary for the plot.
Mm.
Especially the moments like with him and his mom. Like I can
Sure.
understand if it was just the scenes with him and Betty and that kind of progressing, but some of the
Yeah.
stuff with him and his mom I just didn't think was appropriate or
So
added to it.
I think it's interesting because padding that stuff with his mom didn't really add anything to the movie, but I understand his plot function in the movie with the cops, and so there's a pianist in the house for us to get to that scene. But I totally
Right.
agree with you that like padding it with he's wonderful. He was nominated for an Oscar for this movie for best supporting actor, but
Yes.
like and those scenes are enjoyable, but in terms of like keeping the movie snappy, I get it. I understand that it takes us out of the house and like so we can
Mhm.
like have a moment of relief, and I totally get that. But I do agree with you on the flip side that like it did feel like I can imagine in 1962 enjoying those scenes being in a movie theater, and I want more, but like I didn't necessarily need more of that. And I'll get into what I
Right.
actually needed more of in this movie
Hmm.
with
Yeah.
your mind.
But that's really all that I had. Again, just watching the Ryan Murphy series was very eye opening to kind of really have empathy for these superstar actresses of that time, and really kind of seeing them trying to build their careers back up. Especially Joan Crawford, because she has a very kind of traumatic personal life and story,
Mm-hmm.
and just trying to have a career beyond. It was nice just to watch these two powerhouses together in this moment, and in a genre that was so outside of what they ever did. Like none of them were doing horror movie things, and then
Mhm.
this happened. So it's also really kind of cool that this is outside of their genre of movie, and yet it's something that's such a staple now for the both of them. So yeah. Jamie, your thoughts?
Yes. So yes, first time for me. I don't have a lot of the like same context, not only because I there's too many Ryan Murphy shows to keep up with.
Yeah, you're not
Uh
wrong.
but but yeah, I've just like I for not for any particular reason, I just haven't ever done like a deep dive into like the conflict between them or like either of their careers. I'm not like I don't have an extensive background in older movies. So all that being said, kind of going into this with like a very basic understanding of this like famous feud, and knowing that like this is considered a cult classic, I was like excited to get into it. And like definitely in watching it again, like I had to readjust my own expectations because I do the thing that I always do where I'm like posing all these questions, and then I literally only did 4 bullet points because I was like, you gotta stop. I was like, that's not the point of this movie, Jamie. Like, calm the fuck down. So
Obsessed.
like I know myself, and I know what my problems are. And so like I just need to like release all of that stuff and like walk into a movie and just be like, you're just enjoying this for the sake of enjoying it. And I think it's easier for me to do that typically when I'm seeing a movie in a movie theater. It's a lot harder for me to do that when I watch a movie from home. So I already know that like the cards are stacked against me when I'm just watching something from home.
Sure,
Because,
that's
like,
fair.
it's just harder for me to like take everything else out of my brain. But I still had a fun time watching this and still was able to like get there. I just recognized like my own issues with everything. So I there were so many things that I thought were really funny that I feel like kind of fuel the campy Black comedy aspect of this. And I really enjoyed this. I think that like it creating its own like new subgenre is really funny. Especially the fact that it's called psycho-biddy is really funny. Or I think what I've never heard of that before, but like hag horror or like hag
hagsploitation. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
So like kind of seeing
psycho-biddy.
this. Yeah.
Qu'est-ce que c'est? Pa, 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 pa.
Yes.
But yes, like absolutely this is hagsploitation. So I thought like just even from the beginning, I thought it was really funny how they like portray Baby Jane as being like spoiled and obnoxious, and then how Blanche also like seems wildly evil.
Oh my god,
Like,
so much
her as a
eyeliner on that
kid-
little girl. That was like Wednesday Addams.
Just like the like constant like evil glare and like dagger eyes just as a child. And so I just thought that was really funny. I also made a note, who keeps all these empty alcohol bottles unless you're a college kid decorating their kitchen? I just always find it funny when like people in movies are like searching for the empty bottle because they have a drinking problem, and you like see all the clanging around. I'm like, why aren't you recycling all of these? Like I don't understand it. But anyway, a really great representation of like, okay, this person has a drinking problem.
Right. We immediately know. I'd also be shocked if there was a recycling bin in 1962.
That's also true.
Yeah,
I guess I was surprised
very
that it
much.
wasn't just like in a bin only in the cupboard.
Or holding flowers.
Especially when Elvira was there, which I also didn't fully understand what her job was entirely. But like, wouldn't Elvira have like found all those empty bottles and like likely cleaned them up?
Maybe maybe Elvira wasn't the best housekeeper. I don't know. That's questionable. I mean, look at that house.
Another thing that really made me laugh is when, I don't know why I wrote Blanche's daring leather. I think I was just like, I was like in like absurdity mode. Like there's a lot that I think is really absurd in this movie, but I don't think that makes it a bad movie. Again, that's like a readjusting of expectations. So one of the things that I thought was really absurd and funny is like the music that's playing while Blanche is writing the letter to the neighbor. When she's like, okay, like maybe I can like, you know, send a note over to the other side. But the music did not match up with like the tension of that scene or like the sense of urgency that she also didn't really have in writing this letter. It
was like carnival music.
It really was. It was
oh my God.
It was very clown-like, and I just thought it was really funny. But like, I was like, what a strange choice to make for this scene. And also, again, like in thinking about the repetitive, not even just the repetitive nature, but like things that made this movie like longer is like timing of things. Because I was like, okay, you're you're noting that your sister has left, you're noting that you're home alone, you have this like moment in time to do this, but seemingly it took her however long it took her sister to like drive away and come back home to just type out a letter. So maybe the clown music was appropriate. And then the one other thing that like truly fucking got me so hard is it's like one of the last moments where Blanche is still like active enough, and I think it's the last time that she goes to eat or check her food dish because she hasn't eaten, and when it's revealed that it's the rat on her plate, she spins around in circles multiple times, like in a state of panic. But I was like, what is happening?
That's
like,
my favorite.
why?
That's my favorite moment in the movie. There are amazing moments in this movie. That's my favorite moment in this movie.
That part truly blew me away. So just a collection of like the absurdity that I have observed while watching this.
100%.
But it's
and then the overhead shot. Oh my god!
The overhead shot.
The overhead shot is what does it.
Yes,
because the overhead shot shows that this is all on purpose. You know what I mean? Like it's not just like she made a choice and you cut away. Like this was planned and spectacular. Spectacular.
Yeah,
but like so of the time of that kind of spinning around around is that I don't know. That just reminds me of in Singing in the Rain, when not Gene Kelly's character but the other Donald. I can't think of his name, but he's just doing the make them laugh thing. But then he's on the ground and he's like spinning around in a circle, and like they have the overhead shot of it. It feels very like the cartoon going mad, like of the time, like Bugs Bunny of it all.
Yeah. So Donald O'Connor, but it almost feels equal. It almost feels more like look what we can do with the cameras than it does anything else.
Like here's a new angle.
Yeah.
For the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, all of that happened. But I mean, just a lot of really interesting performances. I mean, Jane's character is wild. Between like her as a child, and I thought it was a really interesting portrayal of like what it might be like for a child actor and like their experience and like, you know, I think we're going to talk a bit about like what's the pressure of being the breadwinner on your family when you are like underage, like when you're literally a child. And you know, we get a lot of scenes later where it's like kind of alluding to maybe she has some like daddy issues. She talks a lot about her relationship with her father and when her father died and just like all of the ways that he fueled her stardom, but I think also fueled her like entitlement, and you know how that then made the shift into like her no longer being as successful and like her sister kind of taking over as becoming successful, how that like really hits a wall. And I also think that like her shifting back and forth into like she regresses a lot multiple times throughout this film. She like enters a state of regression at the end of the film when she realizes that like she fucked up big and like they need to get away, and seemingly doesn't recover from that. But I think that when she murders Elvira, I think she also has regressed in that moment because the confrontation is like very infantile and she's just like, no, I'm not letting you in here. You can't come in here. And like Elvira is like talking to her, trying to reason with her. But I think the problem there is like, you can't reason with someone who's like acting like a child. Like she's not in the right state of mind to be able to like understand these consequences that you've presented. And she's acting impulsively, which leads to Elvira's demise. So like, I thought we don't see a lot of like that type of regressive performance in films. I thought that was really fascinating. And like, it was interesting to see like, how does the situation putting pressure on her like fully change how she is acting and performing in those states? And like, otherwise it's just like constantly under the influence of alcohol,
Yeah.
as like her way of like getting through life. So like all of that is really fascinating. And then on the other side, you have this really, really interesting performance of Blanche, who I thought that like when she's the child and like what I actually wrote is, why is Blanche so conniving looking and then acting very ignorant as an adult? And like that flip flop was really interesting. And then you get the twist at the end, and it's like, this is like her carrying the weight of what she's done for her entire life. But there still seems to be this, like, for me, a disconnect of her not really understanding the severity of what her sister is capable of. And I think
Mm-hmm.
part of that is also because her sister is so unpredictable. So it is truly hard for her to anticipate that her sister is going to like isolate her from the outside world, and like the behavior devolves and escalates so rapidly that I think, Elvira is presenting as like grounded and like, I'm really worried about you. And
Mm-hmm.
Blanche is kind of writing it off, which like seems at first I was like, is this out of character for her? I don't know. We're just getting to know her. And it was really hard for me to kind of like grapple with that. But I think that this is my assumption. My assumption is that she felt so much guilt for for essentially framing her sister, that it wasn't necessarily that she was like ignorant to her sister, but I think that she allowed herself more space to like be acting in any kind of way because she
Yeah.
already felt so badly about putting her sister in the position. Like, I think she felt like she has directly contributed to why her sister is the way that she is, which in some ways I think is true. But I think, again, we got enough of like, we just got a snippet of how she was as a child to like
Mm-hmm.
kind of see how maybe she was already predisposed to like, potentially having issues as she went into adulthood, which then were exasperated by what Blanche did to her. So like, whether or not I think that she's ignorant to her sister or has just compartmentalized like that so much because she's so guilty, I don't know. But I do think
Yeah.
it's really interesting anyway, because like then again, like it also leads to Blanche's demise. So it's just like two really fascinating, like multi-layered performances of like things in humanity, like to an extreme, which is why it's so campy,
Right.
and like weird and absurd. But like thinking about it from that perspective, I thought was really, really interesting. It truly is a wild movie, but like, man, you get a lot out of these performances, and like it's there's elements that are like driven from, I think, reality taken to an extreme, but like it is based in something real. So I just think it's like I thought that was really impactful.
Yeah.
Again, like kind of then with all the absurdity thrown into it. I also agree with you, Nikisha, just to wrap up, about Edwin's character,
Yeah.
where yeah, I mean, I think like it's used as a device to kind of further show how out of touch with reality Baby Jane is. But it just felt like they were adding a lot to it, a lot to like to I don't know, really draw it out, and I felt like it wasn't necessary. You could have still
Mm-mm.
gotten to the point without having that. So that might be my only I don't know, con, I guess, but
Yeah.
it was still
I get
interesting.
that.
Sure.
Yeah. And like you said, there's so many layers in this, especially about human behavior with the trauma that is going through, and triggers, and what is triggering this, and did it come from this, or is it a combination of these things, which I think that's what makes it even more fascinating, because you don't really know if there's a solid pinpoint as to, especially when Baby Jane gets into kind of that mental state of, like you said, being a child again. And is it because she was confronted by an adult that she is now behaving in that way,
Mhm.
or is that just always how she communicates when there is confrontation that's outside of her sister, So it's very later in that way. But Brian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love this movie. I think this movie is great. Um, I think that whatever happened to Baby Jane is interesting because let me say that again. Whatever happened to Baby Jane is a wild movie because you can watch it one of two ways. You can watch it as a camp fest, two powerhouse performances that is just crazy to the max and enjoy the hell out of it. Or you could watch it with today's eye and you can criticize all the things that are potentially happening. And you can make that decision, and sometimes they cross over and whatnot. But I think that that's something that you kind of have to make a decision on up front, and set your expectations appropriately. um I I have trouble watching it one way or the other. A lot of those things cross over for me, but I do
Mm,
love this movie. There's a lot that I really love about this. Um, the two performances, as we've all mentioned. Hot take: I think that Joan Crawford is better in this movie than Betty Davis, but Betty Davis is doing more acting in this movie. She has the bigger perform. I think of
yes.
it in terms of the Oscars, like best actor and best actress is typically most acting by an actress in a movie, and most
Mhm.
acting, but
Absolutely.
like she's doing the most acting. But I think Joan Crawford is doing more like acting, if you will.
Hmm.
That's just me.
Mhm.
That chair spin, that's the only thing I really wrote under, like the voice, the
I can do that
song.
too.
uh the opening credits is spectacular. um
Mm.
and I think that the I know they did it because they didn't like want to hire other actresses to play them, but I really liked the second like set of time jumps where the movie producers are talking about them,
Mm.
because it really, like, as an audience, you're getting really excited to see Joan Crawford and Betty Davis, like I think that really works in this movie and doesn't feel like they weren't going to show them younger. In today's world, if this movie was made, they'd be de-aged and all that stuff,
Yep.
or
Mhm.
that would be the age that the actresses are, and the future versions of them would be makeup and all of that. So I really like that, obviously. um I just think this has so many iconic lines. The song "I've Written a Letter to Daddy." I've always said it's the parents' fault in cases like this. All of the overheard stuff
Oh
when
my
she
god, in the
wants ice
beginning
cream
was
outside the stage door,
so funny.
or
So obnoxious.
um, "I'm going downtown to see a man about jury duty." Okay, Elvira, that's what you're up to today. Um, but
What, that wasn't believable enough
I
for
know,
you?
I know. However, I do think this is this movie is interesting. And I'm going to say all this knowing that this is fantastic. There are no other movies like this in the history of cinema, in my opinion. Not
Yeah.
only is this story feel very unique, but like with the stuff we already talked about with the two of them, there's just something that feels magical about this movie. I can't even describe it. It has to do with the history, it has to do with the plot, it has to do
Mm.
with both of these actresses get equal screen time. I feel like that like does not happen when it comes to like these two types of like this type of movie.
Mm.
um but I think that this movie is tough to watch. Jamie had mentioned it with Blanche. Blanche doesn't try hard enough to get out of the house at any point in time. Blanche does not. It's been so many years since she's been in the house. It feels like people would have been checking up on her, and I get like they've isolated themselves and whatnot, but it just feels like something would have changed. And I guess what changed here is the movies on TV and selling the house. Like that's why all of this starts, and I get that. Um, the fact that she hasn't gotten Elvira to help in like and like is wild to me. And like Janie had mentioned, all of that stuff where it's like her denying the fact that her sister is an insane person or like deeply traumatized. And then even Elvira, when Elvira was like, "Oh, my sister knows that we're firing," she's like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, this is not the same. There's just a lot of inconsistencies in characters here just because of the twist. And I think knowing the twist makes this movie like easy to watch, because this movie doesn't present a mystery. So you just accept the fact that you think that Jane hit Blanche. And so all of Blanche's actions just it takes me a long time to, if you don't remember, I didn't remember the twist just at first because I wasn't watching it like that. I was just, you know what I mean? Even though I knew the twist, but I was like, this doesn't make sense at all. And then halfway through, I was like, oh, right, duh, that's why. It's the guilt, it's all of that. But something just makes you feel very uneasy, and maybe that's the point. That it's very unnerving and uneasy, but narratively, it's a real tough first watch, I think, because the character of Blanche doesn't make sense if you don't know the plot, especially how they presented the sister, the young version of Blanche. But I just also want to mention that earlier I said I know what I wanted more from in this movie.
Yeah.
I needed more context in the second jump in time when the two movie producers or whatnot are talking to each other. I needed more context of, or not even there. I needed even, older Blanche to talk about, why she did all of that before the accident, why she did all that. Because I think that their mom telling her that she needs to,
Be nice,
protect her sister and be nice and forget and like forget with like all that stuff, like, and then evil Blanche with her eyeliner Wednesday Addams is like, oh, I'll never forget. It just like all those things didn't match up. I think the performance of the kid at the beginning and the mom was too strong in some ways, or that needed to be reconfigured a little bit for like, I like the idea that, I don't know, there's something, I don't know how I would do it, but there's something in there that doesn't track enough, even with the twist for me. But like, it doesn't matter. That's me being nitpicky and stupid. This movie is a camp fest and it doesn't fucking matter. You know what I mean? Like, realistically, it doesn't matter because she spins in a wheelchair for 25 minutes. And that's all we really need from a film.
That's
like
all
this.
we need out of all of this. Yes.
The doll was creepy deepy.
Yes.
Oh, I hated the doll. Hated.
Yeah, and like, but now knowing the twist, like, I mean, I knew the twist, but like, with the twist fresh in my head, I should say, like, the movie is way more it's a way more interesting movie with the twist than without the twist. It's more just silly and campy, but with the twist, I think there's way more. It's more of an interesting watch, completely and utterly. Like most movies that have a twist, it's just a different experience. But I don't think this movie fully works without the twist than with it does, because you're not searching for anything. But maybe that's the point. I might just be ranting about something that doesn't fucking matter at the end of the day. But I think it's an interesting movie because of that. Because you're watching these powerhouse performances, the twist doesn't really matter. It does plot wise, obviously, but like, that's not what the movie's about.
Right. You just want to see these two people at it.
Yeah, totally. But this movie's great. It just gets extra points for being this movie. You know what I mean? It's got a lot of those Hallmark late 50s styles, even though it's 62, like all that, and like the 60s movies trying to like find its groove. I think it has a lot of that in it. It's got some like, and honestly, these are some great performances that don't feel 60s in some ways. Like these performances, as big as they are and camping they are, truly transcend. I feel like there's a lot of other 60s movies that you're like, this is a 60s style of acting. You have this and a handful of other ones. I mean, it even with the camp. But yeah, that's all I got for this one.
Amazing. Well, Brian, you had mentioned that you had some questions for us. Did you want to go ahead and ask them?
Oh, we kind of answered them
Okay.
already. Like, these are my questions. Did you find older Blanche to be way too defensive? Did the why did she even agree to live with her? Um, uh,
Mm.
uh, does she she's a famous movie star and nobody's checking in on her anymore, and I understand that, like like I said that already, but like that's I'm okay with that one. You can that's fine.
Yeah.
Uh Elvira just believes Jane. Like halfway through the movie, we talked about that. And does the twist make it all make sense? And I think we all agreed that yes, it does.
Yeah. But I understand your point, Brian, of it being a little bit more interconnected. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because if she really was harboring such resentment at a young age, why would she even attempt, even with her mom saying that she should be nice, like why would she even attempt to get baby Jane other jobs?
Yeah, like I get looking out for your sibling, but I truly think that the direction of the young person, I'm not blaming the young person
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
The direction was too strong. Like there was no love between the mother and like just the way that that Jane was obsessed with their dad. Like clearly Blanche found solace at least in her mom and her mom's words, but the way that she says like I'll never forget,
I'll never
I'll
forget.
never forget,
Yes.
never forget, like the way she says that is just like I'm going to ruin my sister's life forever. And she does do that, and that does come back obviously because of the way, and we also haven't talked about the fact that like Blanche probably regressed to her younger self when she was in the car too. So like
Mm.
the fact that she was being made fun of, just like she was probably made fun of by Jane as a kid, she was then being made fun of at that party where she's the like star. There's that aspect of things. She probably regressed and like did that, but I just think that could have been a little bit cleaner, but like
Yeah,
then again, like does it really need to be cleaner? Because that's part of the fun of the movie, that it's like a little bit all over the place. So I think I'm being,
for
again,
sure.
I'm blending the campy watch versus the like the other watch, and it's not necessarily meshing. But yeah, that's this is a silly rant.
But an understandable rant. We
Yeah.
understand where you're coming from. Well, let's get into some more rants in our next section. Brains.
Tasty.
Tasty. So, Jamie mentioned this earlier, but I would love for you to just elaborate on it, if you will. Can we please discuss the toll that it could potentially take on a child actor when they are made aware by their parents that they are the ones bringing in the money, they are the ones that are sustaining the family, buying the houses, making sure that they can eat? Can you just talk about that pressure on a child?
Yeah, I think it probably sucks.
Sucks.
Oh,
Yes.
interesting. It probably sucks.
Sucks.
Yeah, write
Yes.
that down. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that, there's all kinds of things. Like, we've talked about some of the ways that children are like adultified or parentified. And I
Hmm.
think that this has the potential to be one of the ways. I think like you have to be so careful about um allowing kids to be kids while they're also like working. And I imagine that there probably wasn't that much of that, just based on how Jane talks about herself, how Jane talks about how her dad talked to her, and things like that. So I think like, you know, there are things like, I think it takes a lot of adults to be really mindful to protect children in a variety
Hmm.
of ways. So it's like not, I think the parents obviously play a huge role. I think that like the adults on a set play a huge role. A lot of times like when you are watching horror movies that feature kids, we learn like, oh, like, you know, the way that this is presented to a kid is like they're not in the room when the really terrible things are happening. And
Right.
like the way that the, you know, the director is like coaching children on like how to perform a particular scene, even if they're not seeing the full element of it. I think like there are ways where you can talk to children, but like not traumatize them and still get like a really great performance out of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like I think about things like that that can allow a kid to still just like be a kid and not focus as much on like all of the added pressure, or just like again like taking away their innocence at such a young age where it's like going to have this like long-term impact on them.
Yeah.
I also think that like you know, they're probably, I mean, I think that there currently are more like legal protections for children in acting, but like
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we could do more work. I'm sure there's like way more to go in terms of like making sure that you know, what are the financial implications of a kid being the breadwinner? How is their money being protected for them into adulthood? You know, I'm not super familiar with like all of those things, but like I know that like now there are more things, but I also don't know, is that a state by state dependent thing? And like
Mm-hmm.
obviously that's happened over time, so like, you know, again, like I'm less familiar with it, but like I feel like maybe in California there's like more specific laws about like protecting finances for children, where it's like there's a certain percentage that like needs to be set aside for a child that they can
Yes.
access when they're in adulthood, kind of thing. So like stuff like that that I think takes some of the pressure off, but like, you know, I definitely think that like parents probably need to prioritize self-care, because like they don't want to put so much of that on their own children who are like
Mm-hmm.
working and doing this, especially if in fact like their children are the ones making the most money. I imagine that that's something that might like need to be talked about in therapy. Like what does
Yes.
that mean for you as an adult, knowing that like your child is potentially making a higher income than you, and like how do you work through that on your own so that like whatever is coming out, like whatever feelings and things are coming out of that are not negatively impacting your child? Because as soon as you start to name those things, like kids are internalizing those messages. So like
Yeah,
you have
that
to be really careful.
yeah, that also, as you were talking, made me think of in that perspective of the parent as well, because it reminded me of the scene where Baby Jane is kind of manipulating her dad into getting an ice cream. And
Hmm.
I'm just thinking about, how does a kid even learn how to do that? They're testing the boundaries. And then like,
Hmm.
what are the parents doing? Like to your point of figuring it out in therapy, so that even if though they're testing a boundary, you can still be a parent to them. And that might mean, look, then you're not going to do this anymore, and it's okay if us as a family have to find another source of income. But for
Hmm.
them to uh manipulate in that way as a child, it's like, as a parent, you how do you grab a handle on that, while
Hmm.
also being like, we might have to part ways with this money.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that like, yeah, that's again something that like parents should be talking about. And I think again, like, you know, being mindful about how are parents communicating with their children about finances and things like that, I think is all really important.
Hmm.
Because you don't want to put that pressure on your children, and like hopefully it's still fun. Like it should be fun.
It should be fun. I will
I
never
would
forget,
imagine.
Zendaya always talks about her mom telling her, the minute this is not fun, we will
We're
do
done.
something else. I
Yeah.
will take you out of
Good.
it.
Sure.
And you see how stable it seems, at least on the surface, and how
Mhm.
successful Zendaya's career is. But she had a
Yeah.
parent who said, hey, look, if this is not fun for you, we will do something else, and that's totally fine.
Mhm.
That's a tough thing too, to know where can you start to believe that's going to come around again? Like if something isn't fun, at what point are you like, well, maybe the next gig will be more fun? Or like at what point do you stop yourself from continuing to believe in a future that may not exist?
Yeah, that's very true. Fear of the
Yeah.
unknown for
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's all like, I think there's space to normalize that. Like, just because this wasn't the thing doesn't mean that there aren't other opportunities for like connecting with that thing. So, like, again, like, I think that managing expectations and like framing is super important so that like it does open up for the possibility to not be just deterred from exploring something new again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get into Baby Jane then. Can we, because we haven't in a while, Billy or Stu, Baby Jane? And if not a Billy or Stu,
Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative. Yeah, pizza scream, baby.
Billy or Stu?
whatever mental illness you think might fit the bill for her, whatever the DSM-5 might say is going on with the dear old baby.
Yeah, dear old baby.
The dear
I
old
mean,
baby.
what do I think is going on? There's a part of me that thinks that she is more Stu because I think that I don't think that she's able to like fully plan out exact like all of this stuff.
Right.
Again, I think that she's a lot more impulsive.
Sure.
But like in terms of what else might be going on, I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe she's blue. Or
Are you just thinking about like 60s terms?
no, I'm combining Billy and Stu.
Oh.
Oh.
They're thinking like she has the blues. Like just
Maybe she's Stilly.
Stilly.
Do we like
like
Stilly or blue? I think we
No.
like blue better.
I like blue.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But
I can't talk about nostalgia. But I totally get it. The sociopath of it all, which for those, if you're listening for the first time, are Billy and Stu, is Billy is the psychopath. Stu is a sociopath. But Jane is very reactionary. So I can definitely see the sociopathness of it all, especially after she kills Elvira. And then she's like, I don't know what to do. Oh my God, I just did this. And it's like, girl, you were trying to get rid of her this whole time.
my
you already
dad's
know where you want
gonna
to
be
bury her.
so mad at me.
Right. So wild.
Yeah.
So I'll stick with it. I will take the sociopath if that's what you believe.
I don't
Jamie.
know. There's probably more to it, but I really have a hard time. I'm also thinking about like the time period, and I'm like, they just saying she's got like hysteria or something like that, like
For sure.
whether they like, yeah. So that's what that made me think of.
Oh, especially that scene with the doctor who was like, "Are you calling because she has what did he say, like a brain issue?" When
Yeah, he
Blanche
said
was calling.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember. Also, she was so good at impersonating her sister's voice. Like, too good.
I really was questioning if it was like a dub or if it
Yeah.
was really Betty, because that voice was fantastic. Shout outs to the actrice. Okay, then my last question for you is just speaking on aging, and a lot of the times our society really is just about what's going to make you look younger, feel younger, as opposed to just kind of like sitting into your aging, but doing stuff that's healthy to make you live longer. But it's more like, we want you to look younger. Here's all these skin creams, all these whatever's. So my question is, like, what are some things that people could do to kind of more easily, for lack of a better phrase, transition into like aging instead of always kind of yearning and reminiscing on the youth that they once had, especially in the example of Baby Jane?
Yeah, I mean, I think that transition is really difficult. I think as like people in our millennial years, I think I think about these things, and I don't think that there's like any easy solutions to navigating like how do you like when you wake up every morning and your body just like doesn't feel the way that it used to, like how do you grapple with that, especially if your
Mm-hmm.
mind still feels really active and young and you're just like the fuck is going on here, why the like my whole like I broke my back while I went to like stretch this morning or like just stuff like
Yeah.
that, like it's just like really it's I think it's super disturbing. And then on top of that, like if you physically are looking at yourself in the mirror and just feel this disconnect between like your appearance and like how you think you look, or just
Mm-hmm.
noticing that like shift, I feel like it's really hard to like deal with that. Like I look in the mirror and I'm just like, where are these wrinkles coming from? Like,
Mm-hmm.
hello, it's weird. Um, but I think like normalizing aging as much as possible, which is hard. I think, especially for like Jane, where a she was an actress, so like there's the added pressure of like everyone is scrutinizing your looks, especially as an actress. Like the scrutiny that women, I think, in acting get about appearance is like so much greater than men, and like
Mm-hmm.
how does that impact you know their psyche, and like auditioning for certain roles and then being told like no, you're auditioning for the mom, or like stuff like that, where it's like all of that pressure is like really fucked up. So it's already that, and then on top of that, like because she was a child actress, just like this really challenging, like it's like added to 100, where like her peak fame took place when she was like at her at her youngest, like the peak of youth, and then like kind of still feeling like she's got the talent when maybe she doesn't, but like that grappling with like not appearing the way that she did when she was at the peak of her fame. I think all is just like too overwhelming for her to handle.
Yeah.
But I think that I think we can reframe like how like what aging means for us, and like how do we want to feel, even if time is continuing on and like we are getting older. Like everyone says like age is just a number. I think that the idea of like what it means to be a person in your 30s has really shifted with time,
Yes.
significantly. But like I like mentally I don't feel like I'm in my 30s. I feel like I'm stuck at like some like mid 20s age, and I feel like I have not progressed beyond
Oh
that.
yeah. When I look
Mm,
in the
um
mirror, I'm like, wait, who?
yes. Agreed.
yeah. But also I think like thinking about who I am as a person, like I know that I'm not that person in my 20s. Like that is a totally different person. Like I don't
Yep.
even know who that person is. And so like I, as much as maybe it's like when you start to say those things of like, oh man, I wish I like looked how I did in my 20s but like had the all the knowledge that I have now, like it doesn't help to kind of like go through these like hypothetical situations, or like to kind of reflect back and be like, oh, I have so much uh oh, what was the word that I was thinking of? Oh my god, my brain just like had a brain fart. Regret. Like,
Yes.
oh, I regret not like doing all these things that like I should have done when I was younger, blah blah blah. um I think that like it just ends up we end up like criticizing ourselves more, and I think it takes away from like enjoying the present, and being in the positions that we are in now. It's like how do we take advantage of where we're at now, even if we don't necessarily look the same that we did, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, but like
Mm-hmm.
you also might not have been the person that you are now, and like sure, for worse, but also for better. I am so glad that I am not the person that I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Like,
I think a lot of people can say that.
yeah. Oh my
No, I'm the
God.
Yeah.
I
same.
was deeply embarrassing. I'm embarrassed of like a younger version of me. So like
Oh.
I am happy to be in this position that I'm in now, where like I care a little bit less. I'm a little bit more secure in who I am, and like like just moving forward in life and trying to like enjoy all moments. Like, you know, I think that that's a really important thing is just like kind of reframing what does aging mean. I think it's more about time. And like I think that's what stirs up a lot more anxiety is like this idea of losing time. But like, yes, you know, we're getting older and like time is continuing on, but like then focus on the present. Like, what do you want to be doing now? How do you want to be living your life now? What are the things that are going to be fulfilling you now? Like, don't wait. Don't get hung up on what you haven't already done. Know that there is still time. Continue on knowing that like you can choose to do anything right now in this moment that is bringing you joy and happiness and like fulfilling you. And like that's what I think helps us kind of take attention away from like the loss of time moving forward and just like enjoying the time that we have right now.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful and great. And to think that like some people don't even get to have as much time as other people do in this world. So it's a gift that you can, especially in the Baby Jane case of like, or just the Betty Davis and Joan Crawford of it all, like living that long and still having like such big careers. Like people dream of that stuff, you know? Fantastic. Well, that's all that I have. Should we Rotten Tomatin?
Yeah.
Tomatin.
Let's put some tomatoes in the meter. No, that was no good.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
All right. What do you think this has on Rotten Tomatoes? What do you think this has on?
97.
All right.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt your lovely song.
No, it's okay. It's fine. Wasn't gonna be
86.
91. It has a 91 and a 91 for both the critics and the audience. The critics' consensus reads, "Whatever happened to Baby Jane combines powerhouse acting, rich atmosphere, and absorbing melodrama in service of a taut thriller with thought-provoking subtext." I think that's pretty much a home run sentence.
Nail on the head. Got it.
All right. Out of 5, what do you think this has on Letterboxd?
4.3.
4.5.
4.1.
Ooh.
Great.
And some of the popular reviews of this are: "My mood is Blanche spinning around in circles and screaming."
Yes. There has to be a GIF of that somewhere. I'm sure.
I'm sure.
I'm gonna find it.
And then there's one, "Whatever happened to Baby Jane?" More like, "What the fuck are you doing, Baby Jane?"
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
What are you doing?
I've written the letter to Daddy.
Are we ready for our 4 S's?
Oh, yes.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horrors 4 S's.
Okay, the 4 S's are skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. We are trying to find out what our scores are. 1 through 10. Skulls is how well it handles mental health and human behavior. Scares is how scary was it. And shakes is how much will you remember this movie. Is it one and done, or are you shaking it off? And then we'll give some suggestions. Jimmy, why don't you go first with your numbers?
Sure. I didn't know how long you were going to do that for.
Yes.
I'm torn on like a skulls score. I'm somewhere between like a 7.5 and an 8. Because as I talked about in my likes, I just think that like the pieces that we get that are like really rooted in reality and then like obviously taken up to 11, I think are really fascinating. In terms of like regression and trauma, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of scares, I gave it a 3 because I do think that like Jane is really menacing and creepy. And like really just like her unpredictability to like murder and like tying her sister up and
Oh,
like
God.
just like the like this all this torture that's happening is really terrifying.
Mhm.
So even though like you don't see the murder and like there aren't jump scares per se, I think it's still really scary. For Shakes, I'm giving this a 7. I definitely want to like sit with this more and like just think about like again the bigger impact that this has had on horror and like you know movies about relationships.
Mhm.
So I'm excited to now have this in my movie watch belt.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nikisha.
Skulls, I gave this a 7. Yeah, there's just a lot happening mentally here. Scares, I gave it a 1. Even with everything, I was just still, not scary for me. Um, the Shakes, I'll give it a 6. I think it's just a solid movie in the what is it? Hagsploitation chain
The
franchise, whatever.
Hagsploitation.
Yes.
Psycho-biddy verse.
Psycho-biddy verse. Yes, I like that. Psycho-biddy verse.
Cool. My skulls is an 8, my scares is a 1, and my shakes is an 8.
Nice.
I'll start with suggestions. My suggestions is another psycho-biddy film from 1964 starring Betty Davis. So if you're into this, you'll definitely be into Hush Hush, Sweet Charlotte.
Which was kind of a sequel, but not a sequel. Joan
Right.
Crawford was going to be in it, but then, hey, balloons, they asked Betty's friend Olivia, I forgot her last
De
name,
Havilland.
to be in it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Fun times.
But yeah, Hush Hush, Sweet Charlotte should definitely be on everyone's list if you enjoyed this one.
I'll add to that because Joan Crawford had another horror one called Straight Jacket. I've never watched it, but I can only imagine it is just as absurd because there's heads being chopped off by axes in it. Also watch Betty versus Joan. So
right. Jamie?
I chose another psychological horror, but there's also an older woman in it that kind of does some shitty things to a younger woman in it. So my suggestion is Rosemary's Baby.
yeah. I thought you were going to say Skeleton Key for some reason, but I don't know.
You know what? When I was looking up other psycho-biddy movies, Skeleton Key is also on the same list for the same kind of reason.
What else? Misery also pops into my head.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They also said X would be considered it because of
I saw that.
Pearl.
Oh, sure.
So Ty West is bringing it back.
So here's my argument against X being a psycho-biddy, and I think it is, but there a part of me that would assign movies to the psycho-biddy subgenre are ones that actually star older women.
For sure.
I get why that is, but to me, there's an asterisk next to that one because the point of this one is that there's the older women who revitalize their career by playing this type of genre, and I feel like that's the backbone of it. But I would agree that is psycho-biddy, adjacent or exactly psycho-biddy.
Man, let's get Meryl Streep in an A24 horror moment happening. I think that would be excellent.
I still think we need Meryl Streep and Viola Davis in some sort of this type of a not a remake because they've done remakes made for TV with the Redgrave sisters, but
right.
I think you make a psycho-biddy movie with Meryl Streep and Viola Davis.
Yes.
But you just something new, something wild, something campy. But I don't think that it is a remake of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. I think it's in the same vein as that. And give it to me whenever. Now, 10 years, it doesn't matter. I want it.
It doesn't matter. Everyone will eat it up. And the campier, the better. Because even just having these actresses play a script that is campy, that's all that I want to see. But how are they going to execute it?
I know, but there's an argument that Meryl already did that with Death Becomes Her. But it's not the same. It's not the same.
Yeah, it's not. Which is also
Great
going to be a
film.
musical that I will go see.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I love that
100%.
movie.
No questions. And they're
Every
remaking.
no
Aren't they
questions.
remaking it? I think they're remaking it as well.
They're going to remake the movie as well?
Yeah, I think it's like Anne Hathaway and Kate Hudson, Goldie Hawn,
coming again? Coming back again?
and Lady Gaga as the what's it called part that gives them the antidote.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think Robert Downey Jr. was in talks to play the Bruce Willis part. It doesn't need to be remade. It doesn't excite me, but I think there was some conversation about it at some point. But yeah, the musical is coming and that cast is banging.
Oh, yes. Megan Hilty, I'll see her do.
Jen Simiard.
Yes. Sing the phone book. I'm there.
And who's the guy?
It's slipping my mind. I don't remember.
I know who it is. It's gonna
For Book of Mormon? No.
It's Christopher Sieber.
Oh, even better.
Yeah, it's Christopher Sieber. And
Yeah.
Michelle Williams.
Nice. Yes.
Like
Who's playing the lady? Yes.
Like Destiny's Child, Michelle Williams.
Destiny's Child, exactly. She was gonna play, I guess, what Lady Gaga was gonna play in the remake.
And,
Yeah.
Anyway, we went on a tangent
Fantastic.
there.
It's all good. Okay, that wraps up our episode of whatever had happened to that baby old Janie.
Whatever happened.
You can follow us on all the social medias: Instagram, Twitter, TikTok @TalkHorrorPod. And producer Brian, where can they listen to us?
You can listen to us wherever you get podcasts. So, have you ever gotten your podcast from a place called Spotify? You can find us there. Have you ever found the YouTube? We're there too. Hi, YouTube.
Hi. Thumbs up.
And you can also find us on Apple Podcasts. Rate and review us there. 5 stars, please.
And thank you.
Fantastic. Wonderful. We hope to see you on the review boards. I don't know.
Psycho-biddy. That's just our ending. Ba, 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 ba. Come on. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
I've written a letter to Daddy. Just remember.
Oh.